He'll be with us tomorrow. Joining us now, Congressman Andrew Clyde, 9th District, that's North Georgia. Congressman Clyde, thank you. I want to get right to it. The conference call that was held for Republicans on what was going on in Afghanistan on Sunday night. You guys were cut off, I'm told. You weren't allowed to ask questions. What is the status right now in Afghanistan? And are Republicans in the dark, or are you being looped in, sir?
Well, thank you very much, John, for having me on. We just got an update from the State Department just less than an hour ago, and it says that the Department of Defense has restored order at the Kabul airport. So it is a secure environment there now, and that to date, 3,000 people have been evacuated, including 330 United States citizens and permanent residents. As well, we've had over 2,000 Afghanis that have been evacuated as well. So that's some good news to report to you. I'm still very disappointed in the Biden administration and their lack of leadership on this. It is apparent that they had no plan and that they had no contingencies. They didn't follow anything when it came to military strategy when you would leave a country. So, Congress has been fairly kept in the dark right now. You are correct that the questions were cut off on that briefing. And so it's been very, very disappointing. I think that Congress needs to have some investigations as to what's going on here. And some people need to be held accountable for what they have done or haven't done, really.
I'm going to get to, David, let's get to cut 5 here. Congressman Clyde, here's Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby, who was a complete disaster today because he couldn't even tell you how many Americans are stuck there. He was asked, where's Lloyd Austin? Legitimate question, right? Where's General Milley? Another legitimate question. Here's his answer.
John, why are we not hearing from Defense Secretary Austin and General Mark Milley?
The chairman and the secretary are, as I think you would understand, extremely busy in communication with commanders on the ground, with General McKenzie, with the interagency, and I have every expectation that at the appropriate time, you'll hear from both of them.
You know, it's like you're walking in and out of the Cartoon Network with this absolute clown show that's going on in there. But it's scary. If you've got a loved one right now, Congressman Clyde, that is stuck in Afghanistan, here's what the government has told you to do. Shelter in place. Wear a mask. Oh, by the way, we'll get to you after we prioritize Afghan refugees. And by the way, your governor today, Governor Kemp, just said, hey, we're going to take them in Georgia. These people are not vetted. They're not vaccinated. Why are we taking them here?
Well, I think we have a huge crisis is what's going on, John, and it's very evident that that no plan is in place. It's just a really scary time for all of us when it comes to what's going on in Afghanistan. I mean, you have tremendous amount of military weapons that were for the Afghanis that are now in the hands of the Taliban. We have given them more territory post Sunday right now than they had pre 9/11. So with the current advanced weaponry that they have and the ability to control their own caliphate, we have just created a hotbed for for international terror. So this is a real difficult situation, and it was completely avoidable. I truly believe that with the proper plan in place, that the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff could have led well, but I don't think they did, and that is why I called for their resignation. And the other thing is, the president right now, where is he? He's at Camp David. Camp David is a place that you go to relax, to go on vacation, to get away from things. He should be in Washington, D.C. right now leading this effort, but he's not. This is the first time in my lifetime that the commander-in-chief has been AWOL. That means absent without leave. And he is not leading the country. It is an absolute disgrace, and we are worse off for it. This is just another crisis to add to the growing list of crises under the Biden administration.
Congressman Clyde, outline for us, the government officials, that today, as congressman, United States congressman, that you demanded their resignation. Tell us who and tell us why.
There were two that I demanded the resignation of, and that was the Secretary of Defense, Austin, and then also the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley. I think both of them, Secretary Austin is a career military officer. He had to get a waiver in order to take that position. So he has tremendous military experience, and it is unacceptable. It is a total dereliction of duty for him to not have had a plan in place for the removal of our troops and our civilians from Afghanistan. So he needs to resign. He absolutely needs to resign, and so does General Milley. I think they've spent more time on social engineering and on chasing white rage and the other things that should not be of concern in the military when we should be focused on the mission. And that has been the problem. They are not focused on the mission, and they need to resign because they need to be relieved for cause.
Congressman, what is the level of rot inside of our intel agencies?
That's a good question. Right now, we don't know whether or not this is an intel failure or whether this is and our military guys actually didn't get good information, or whether or not the intel was truly there, but our military folks just didn't listen to it. But I suspect that the intel was there, because you can go back in history and look at time after time after time, example after example, and see that this is exactly a predictable scenario. And because it was predictable, or should have been predictable, we should have had a plan in place to compensate for these contingencies.
This has got to be one of the most despicable situations I've ever seen. It's probably the biggest military failure in our history. Congressman, I'm running out of time, but my view of that speech, I was flabbergasted by it. I was disgusted by it. I wanted to puke over it. You've got 20 seconds here. What was your reaction to Biden's speech?
Well, first off, he took no questions, and I think the telling part of it was at the very end, where you could see on the teleprompter where it said "Leave now." Okay, and that says everything you want to know right there.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, John.
I don't know how we're going to get to January 2023. Somehow, together, Congressman, we have to get there. Congressman, thank you for calling for these resignations today. Thank you for standing up for the common man and for what's right. Vernon Jones.